um, President von der Leyen, distinguished guests all, members of the media. This is a special day for our country and represents another step in the mature relationship between Barbados and the European Union. 49 years ago, I dare say I was merely 10 years old when the relationship started, and over the course of the last 49 years, there have been tangible expressions of that cooperation between our two entities. European Union, representing a number of countries, 27 countries I believe now, and Barbados seeking to ensure that both individually and as a member initially of the ACP and now as the OACP, and I believe that we actually are chairing the OACP as we speak now, that we are in a position to move from strength to strength. The world is facing very difficult challenges, as we are all aware. The climate is affecting all of us, even though we were the initial canaries in the mine, and we welcome the support and cooperation of the European Union in particular as we confront this existential crisis and seek to build greater resilience for our people as we go forward. The area of renewable energy is clearly one of the major offshoots of that response to the climate crisis, and therefore this morning the update that we received with respect to the issue of the investment in the production of hydrogen is an important one for our country. It also allows for a stability in the supply of power to the grid in a way that solar doesn't, and therefore the combination of the two becomes even more important to us. I think that we recognize that our conversations on renewable energy should not be limited to Barbados, and I hope in the course of the next 2 days, when you will have the opportunity not just to meet with myself, but to meet with all of the other heads of state and heads of government who are here for the CARICOM meeting, that we will be able to explore opportunities for even deeper and wider cooperation on the matter of renewable energy. As it relates to the medical and biomedical area and pharmaceuticals, this relationship did not just start. Indeed, in Sharm el-Sheikh, in Egypt, we had the opportunity with Dr. Tedros from the WHO, as well as with the head of the European Investment Bank, and with the president of Rwanda, and remotely with the president of Guyana, to lay the parameters for a partnership framework which has already produced benefits for us. It is due to the cooperation of the European Union that Barbados was able to launch its white book with respect to the regulatory framework for the pharmaceutical industry, and we thank you publicly for that. And we continue now to be able to move to the next stages with respect to legislative framework, as well as the establishment of the regulatory mechanisms that are critical for us to be able to attract companies here to do manufacturing of pharmaceuticals, as well as we are seeing through the signature of this agreement and with other partnerships, research in critical areas. You heard the Minister say that there has been very little research done in the pharmaceutical industry for conditions that is based on our genes as persons of African descent. Indeed, the numbers for diabetes, I'm told, that are available, less than 7% of the persons tested come from African background. And to that extent, it is of great concern to us, because I often say in our country that we are suffering from a diabetes epidemic. And therefore, the pharmacological efficacy of the pharmaceuticals really does matter to us, because this is where the rubber hits the ground, not just for us who are in press conferences, but for that woman in St. Lucie or that man somewhere in St. Philip who themselves are not being able to benefit and who have become a victim either of an amputation because of uncontrolled diabetes, or who have themselves now suffering from kidney problems or indeed blindness, some of the other consequences of the diabetic condition. And I want to make this clear, because very often we see these press conferences and you wonder, how does this relate to the average man and woman? And this is where the rubber is going to hit the ground for Bajans, Caribbean people, and indeed Africans across the world, not just in Africa but in the diaspora, because we need to shift the attention of the pharmaceutical industry to be able, particularly in an era of personalized medicine, precision medicine, to be able to shift it to allow us to be equally the beneficiaries of the wonderful research that's being done. I am clear that the European Union's help in this area has been pivotal in terms of allowing Barbados to be where we are. We had an ecosystem from 1882, that, as I said yesterday, that made pharmaceuticals, but only fill and finish. But what we have recognized is that we are best off in development trusts where we take and build on an existing ecosystem, and that is simply what we are trying to do here. With respect to the other areas of cooperation, we have had extensive discussions on the issue of the difficulties that we've had with respect to blacklisting and greylisting, and mercifully Barbados is off of those lists now, but there is one remaining factor that is not in the control of the Commission, but in the control of the European Parliament, and we hope to be able to sensitize them as to its importance to us, because this is also where it hits, the rubber hits the ground with respect to companies that are Bajan investing in Europe, or companies that may be financing or accessing financing out of Europe, and we would want for there to be no further obstacles with respect to our relationship. We have also spoken about the Bridgetown Initiative, which is critical to all of us in terms of creating a fairer and more transparent deal for countries accessing the international financial institutions, and Europe's support generally has been there. There are some things that we have still to do, and we would want to see greater participation in the belief that per capita income alone cannot be the basis for accessing concessional financing or grant financing as we fight this climate crisis, which we didn't start, but that we need to be able to also have a clear understanding of vulnerability, in particular climate vulnerability, and in particular with respect to the acknowledgement that many small island developing states face wipeout risk. There are some other issues that I hope over time that we will be able to discuss to strengthen our partnership, because I believe that our collective voices in pursuit of fighting this climate crisis, boosting resilience and adaptation, and seeking to mitigate by increased use of renewables will help us all. I am aware that fossil fuels are not necessarily the enemy. What is the enemy is the emissions. And if there are those persons who believe strongly that there are other ways, then we should be increasing significantly the investment to decarbonize the fossil fuels rather than simply denying the existence of the climate crisis. So with these words, I'd like to formally thank you and welcome you. There are other areas of cooperation, but I am conscious of the time, and simply say that whether it is in terms of satellite communication, digital cooperation, AI, both you and my minister were at the summit last week in Paris related to AI, the issue of AI regulation and AI possibilities, and then of course the very difficult issue of cybersecurity risk, and we've already benefited from the European Union in our own preparations for the legislation with respect to that. So let me also thank your representatives in Barbados, Ambassador Gosha. Everybody knows Gosha. And to say that not only there, but also the representatives of the European Investment Bank, more particularly as expressed in the debt for climate swap, which has just recently been completed, which has been truly innovative in terms of not allowing the benefits of the debt swap to be taken year by year by year over 15 years, but to take it and aggregate it such that the capital investment that is being made with respect to the South Coast Sewage Treatment Plant comes up front rather than having to wait 15 years for the benefit of that debt swap. So with a lot is happening, but more importantly than anything, your presence here speaks volumes. You are the first woman to head the European Commission. And that in and of itself, I know, is a matter of immense pride for us. And like me, I know that you have come not to be the first, not to be the last, but to ensure that others can come after you. Secondly, you are the first president to visit Barbados and the Caribbean, and to that extent also at this point in time when Europe is facing its own challenges, and when Europe, as recent as the beginning of this week, had a summit to be able to determine how best it is going to address the challenges that go fundamentally to the heart of Europe's stability. That you are still here speaks volumes to us, and about the importance of this partnership, not just with my own country, Barbados, but with the Caribbean community. And I look forward to being able, therefore, to work with you in a mature way that will bring value to our countries and to our people. Thank you very much.